Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. My name is Mr. Bennett. With my partner, as always, Sparta HK.
This is Sparta!
AKA the Ghost of Sparta, AKA Peter, AKA Panayotis. Yasu, my brother, how are you?
What is going on?
And things are good. Things good. We had a blast of a weekend. We're going to be talking about that. Me and Peter, we actually had the opportunity to hook up. And, we were actually at Comic-Con in New York City over the weekend. Yes, he has his lightsaber. And, well, since you're gonna show yours, mine is like back here charging up. The battery didn't last too long. So, yes, I bought a lightsaber. But we're going to talk about that on our Saturday show. So, Saturday... I had the Hangout show, Sparta HQ Network, 9:30 Saturday night. We're going to be doing sort of our recap of Comic-Con and all the things that took place there. So, so we had a blast. And, certainly I got more than what I bargained for when I was there. But certainly Peter was certainly very gracious in extending the invitation and whatnot. So we're going to chop it up then. We're not going to give too much away.
Shout out to Pop Culture Warrior, our buddy, CQ, who hooked us up with press passes. All the content will be on his.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. We're gonna We got to again save some of that. We're going to bring up all of that in the happenings of Comic-Con.
The only thing I'm saying is the content will be on his channel. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, it will. 100%. So we'll make that available to him. But certainly good to have you guys with us tonight on the show. So again, shout out to Anania who came in early today. Catelia as always again. And actually, me and Peter were mortal enemies tonight. Obviously, the Jets are playing the Steelers right now as we speak. But again, the show must go on, and the Jets are winning 15-6 the last time I saw. So again, they're winning right now. So they're making me sweat right now. But yeah, but the show must go on. We'll sort of track the game in the background here, but we weren't going to give up the show for a game. But again, shout out to Catelia as always. Again, they're making us nervous again. My man Eric coming in tonight, boss man as always. Thank you for what you're doing in the back. Quincy Freon again, thank you for also being here tonight. 183007 again, always good to see you here tonight, and certainly looking forward to Mariana. Good to have you tonight here as well. So certainly looking forward to a good discussion tonight. And so tonight's show is going to be on reading and the different aspects of reading, the methodologies with which people are reading today. And certainly, this came up as we were chopping. I think we were chopping it up on another show, and this sort of came up, and we suggested
last
that.
Week, actually, it was last week.
So we were saying that this would be a good topic of discussion as far as that. So again, good question. Do you journal this show? Everyone, do you journal the show tonight? Is for let's enjoy the show. Appreciate that. But yeah, we're going to talk about this in depth tonight because I think certainly with the current times, I think reading as we may have understood it, if you're certainly a baby boomer, Gen Xer, millennial, Gen Z or whatnot, our methods of how we get information have certainly changed over the years. And certainly we want to sort of explore some of that tonight and get a perspective on that. And so it's definitely, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to share some stats on that and try to get some reasons as to why this is happening, but then also maybe explore some tropes as far as when it comes to reading that we may hear about, but at the same time, is it true? Is it valid or not? And so we need to talk. We need to definitely, definitely talk about that. So, but I wanted to get sort of a global perspective, Peter. So when you were growing up in Greece, right? So again, in the U.S. and again, for you guys who are in the chat, can you remember from either grammar school or middle school or even high school, what were some of the books that were considered required reading in school when you were doing there? I remember titles like The Invisible Man, Catcher in the Rye, The Scarlet Letter. There were certain titles that was required reading in your English lit classes growing up. What were some of the titles you remember? It might have been, Fahrenheit 451 or 1984. Different books. So just name some of your favorites that might. So when in the Greek school system, talk about that. What books were considered required reading? What books do you earliest remember?
So this is a bit of a sour subject for me because of my disability.
Right.
So from anybody who hasn't known, I have made it publicly announced I have a reading and spelling disability. So sometimes that's why my comments in the chat are kind of fucked up. But I've been working on it. I don't believe anything is failure. I believe I will get stronger at it. The only time I'm going to fail and when I'm fucking dead. When you bury me in the ground, that's the only time I fail. Simple as that. Right. So with my disability, I avoided books like the plague. Actually, it's not even like a plague. I avoided books like fucking cancer. Like that's even a better way of saying it. So, by that said, in Greece, the most like a couple of the most common books usually is like Oliver Twist and the old school ones. Like history books. There's a big thing in Greece. History is major in Greece. That they will teach you to turn blue to the fucking face, literally. I'm not joking. Excuse me. Now, when I came, the other thing, one thing I would read is my mom bought me because I do enjoy them, and it goes with our theme yesterday is comic books.
Yeah,
I love comic books. I still have some of my old Greek comic books in my closet. Actually, I can grab it in a minute. I'll grab one, actually, a couple of them. And it's something I enjoy to this day. I read comic books like it's going out of style. Right, I don't read as much anymore because everything's digitalized now.
Right.
But I love reading comic books.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned those because I think certainly when it comes to reading, there is a bit of a what do you call it? A bias or status when it comes to reading. I mean, my background tonight, I kind of put that up just for the based on the theme of the show. But and you even see it now with different podcasters or whatnot. Oftentimes they will have backgrounds like the one I have here, either virtually or with real books that they've read over time, as a sign of their intelligence and that they've read a lot of books or that they're well read. Have they read all of those books that are behind them? Sometimes we don't know. But I think there's always been a bit of a bias between those who read, some of the classics, whether it be Shelley Finkel or, Shakespeare or, some of the classic books versus comic books. Certainly I think that, people don't necessarily think you're necessarily that literate if you spent a lot of your childhood reading comic books versus again some other classic titles or whatever. Me personally, I've never made that distinction or difference, but I do think there are some biases when it comes to when you talk about a person who is considered literate or considered well read is oftentimes based on the titles that they read. So comic books for a lot of readers, if you will, has never really been considered reading by a lot of those people, even though you have a lot of good writers who wrote storylines for comics novels over the years that explore a lot of the same themes that you'll find in a lot of these other books. Comic books has always been something considered sort of somewhat childish to an extent. So I have seen over time that there is a bias involved. Absolutely, yeah. So they're oftentimes based on a lot of those mythological books like Homer's Iliad and a lot of those historic tales and fables that you may read in another book. But for some reason, a lot of people have this bias against comics. But it's still reading. So I grew up on comic books, but I also grew up on encyclopedias. Back in the day, my mom, she bought me this huge volume of World Book encyclopedias. And so it was like a huge, investment. I don't even know how much she paid for it. But I went through like all of them several times. I would read anything. I would read fiction. I would read nonfiction. I was big on sort of science and tech, so anything that would expand my knowledge back in the day. So again, big volume of books. There might have been maybe 25, 30 of them in total that kind of covered from A to Z on any subject, historical, science, and otherwise that I just kind of got into. And that was certainly by the age of probably 10 to 12, I was really into those. But I read everything. I mean, it wasn't, I don't think she necessarily made a distinction. She bought me a lot of graphic novels. Yeah, absolutely, encyclopedias. And that was an investment, I think, that she made in me at the time. But I do value, again, comic book readers. And I never made a distinction between those, whether however you get it in. Shout out to Lost in Translation, good to see you tonight. I've never made that distinction, but unfortunately you have a lot of people who do. And obviously with school curriculums now, it's interesting that even in Greece you mentioned some English titles like Oliver Twist and those sort of things. So, but are there any books that are specific to Greece or Greek culture or history that you remember reading when you were in the Greek school system back in the day that was considered required reading for everyone?
History. The Greek mythology was number one thing you had to read.
So Greek mythology that was, that talked about a lot of those mythical figures.
So,
around what age was that?
Back, I can't remember. So Greek school is a little different than here. All right.
Okay.
So you are responsible to buy your books every year, and they don't hand them to you like they do here in school. Mm-hmm. So you get is a new version every year, like college here. Think of like high school, elementary school is like college here. All right. So you have to buy your school book. This year is, let's say, is Alexander the Great is, for example. Next year is about Zeus, and the next year after that is Hercules, or whatever. They break it down for 12 years to learn that shit. I sucked that up because I love that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think it was fascinating. I still think it's fascinating. I would not change that about that. But what I will say is different is the Greek culture versus the American culture. They require you to read books. Like I remember my English teacher made us read Harry Potter. Okay, cool. But I'm not a hip hop fan.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But then she told us after that we finished that. Then she told us you can pick any book you want. Me and being me, you probably figured out what I picked already, right? I picked something I enjoy.
Yeah.
I picked up Hulk Hogan's book. That was this first came out, so I read the shit out of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first book.
Is that the one where he's got the feathers on and all that? Is that the
Hollywood Hogan? He was going at the time. It was
okay.
right.
Okay.
Right.
I just remember one of his books. He still has the yellow and the red on. He's got the feathers on and everything like that. And I think I remember that for one of the covers of his book. It might have been like one of his autobiographies. But yeah, I think I remember the cover.
So after that, I had to read something else. So I loved comics. Fascinating. The stories were awesome. But it was different here. Because you're forced to read it. Because you enjoy to do it. In Greece, it was kind of like you're forced, but you enjoy it because they're making you think it's your culture. You have to know this. What kind of Greek are you? Like you. All right. I say, what kind of American are you? You don't know your history. How do you know who really discovered America? It wasn't Columbus. It was somebody else. You look at your teacher like, oh, I feel stupid. You're not American. Not knowing that. That's what I'll tell you. You're non-Greek. You don't know this shit.
Right.
Like dates. Don't tell me about fucking dates. I'm horrible on fucking dates. I can barely remember my own goddamn fucking birthday. Don't need you dare say it out loud because I will come to Georgia and kick your ass. Keep it hush hush. So I already feel old. Leave me alone. Right. After today, I would feel older after these kids at work were telling me these weird new slangs. Whatever. But anyway, back to the show. The dates, I'm horrible. I've never been really good with dates, but I can tell you situations or moments in history. In like good example, like sounded great. All right, like that's what first in my mind. One is most iconic that I remember is him taking over the city. He goes, this big ass rope knot. And you go, how do you untie that? He just chopped it up. So I remember that, and like my teacher goes, like you're actually good at this stuff. Like I'm not trying to brag. I'm just like this is a typical Greek, but I am a little cocky, just little. But that's stuff I like. I'm sucked into it. Like I picked up some workout books. I sucked into it. If you like it, you get sucked into it. But if you don't like it, you're not gonna read it.
Right.
Oh, like if I give you a book about rebuilding a transmission, is that going to fascinate you or is it going to bore the shit out of you?
It might. It depends. Like I certainly, in terms of, and I'm also going to ask people in chat. So again, people have been in the chat talking about all kinds of books. You talk about Beowulf. I had to go through certainly that, the Odyssey, Catcher in the Rye. I mean, there's been Edgar Allan Poe. Certainly a lot of classics out there that have certainly been been out there. But in terms of, reading, I like reading certainly for knowledge and for information. So,
right,
so something,
then.
yeah. So something like that. So again, I very rarely do I read for pleasure. The only books that I get pleasure in, so I'm not a fiction reader. I'll say that off the rip. I'm not a big fiction reader, but I love autobiographies, not just biographies, but I love autobiographies. I like, I like history books. I like books that, again, give you information in terms of how things work. So again, science books, my favorite book to read back in school was like science textbooks that explain the galaxies and the universe and how stars are formed and all those sort of things are certainly things that I get into. I like, getting information. I like knowing either how things work or how did people become who they are. I'm always interested in, how a famous person or a person known in history, how they become who they are. Always interested in hearing about backgrounds of people and what formed them, good or bad. What formed dictators, and I've read up on Hitler and Stalin and the childhoods that they had, and how it changed my perspective in terms of how I saw them, that these weren't just monsters, but they were created. I mean, they're forming in their early years. You know, we've had shows where we've talked about fatherhood and whatnot, and parenting and children, and how, you know, the lives of these kids, you know, certainly was a fertile ground that, you know, that created, you know, some of the monsters that they are. So I like getting into that kind of stuff. I like to know what makes people tick, or what circumstances or situations allowed us to survive and endure the times that we've been in. So yeah, so a book on, if I had nothing else to read, a book on how transmissions work, I would like to get into the nuance of that and understand that realm a little bit better. But I want to ask the chat in terms of your preferred reading. Okay, so when you read for pleasure, or, you know, one, what is your reading preference? Do you prefer fiction or nonfiction? Are you into novels? Are you into those romantic for women? Are you into those, you know, E. Macy Gray books, those romantic erotic novels? You know, what are you, 50 Shades of Grey? What are you into in terms of your reading? Or do you prefer historical books, nonfiction, historical figures, or, like I said, biographies, autobiographies? What is your preferred method of reading? But like I said, I admit I am not a huge fiction person, so that certainly would distinguish me from my man Eric. Eric is a huge fictional reading fan, so he's read a lot of the classics. He's read Lord of the Rings. He's read the Dune books from back in the day. I mean, a lot of these historic titles from back in the day, he's well versed in a lot of those titles. Me personally, like I said, I never got into them, so I always saw them in the movies, and I may go back and read a book here and there. In that, if after I've seen the film or the movie or the TV show or something like that, to get a little bit more perspective and to see how it's different. But I've never been a big fictional reader or reading for that kind of entertainment. I've always been a TV guy or a movie guy when it came to, like, you know, that kind of entertainment value. But like I said, outside of that, so again, suspense, drama, crime, horror, and fantasy. I've never been that guy. Shout out to Braxton for being here. I've never been into reading for that purpose. But again, there have been some fictional titles that I have enjoyed. So, like, for example, I'm a huge Godfather fan. And so I actually went back and I read the book by Mario Puzo on The Godfather, in part because I was so enthralled by the film or the films. And so for the films, then that kind of got me into the books. But I didn't start with the book. And one reason that I've discovered that I don't get into the books as much is because a lot of times when the movie comes out or the TV show comes out, people are so disappointed because, again, the movie or the TV show can never capture what was in the book. And so a lot of those fans are, like, very disappointed sometimes. So I never wanted to be one of those disgruntled people that's like, oh, the book was better. Well, the book, of course, is going to be better because you can put 500 pages in a book, but you only got 2 hours to film to have a movie. So I was never that type of reader. But yeah, anything that's going to give me some knowledge, some information, some perspective, absolutely. That is my genre. But what are you guys into in terms of, you know, if you're into nonfiction, what type of fiction that you're in, or vice versa? So again, Mariana's talking about historical books, absolutely, autobiographies, and the Bible, of course. Amen. No question about that. Always going to that. But yeah, I mean, so Peter, so I know you said you're into comic books or whatnot, but outside of those, what other titles? I actually want to touch
base on this. Like, and I went on a period that I actually, ready? You're gonna fall off your seat. I actually started buying books for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Into Nobles and whatever, Book of Millions, all those stores, right? And I was buying books because I wanted to. What I was gravitating to, and they were big fucking books, by the way, was military book and Tom Clancy's.
Oh yeah.
I love the Tom Clancy. Keep me man. He knows how to fucking write. Rest in peace, my brother. Right. Seriously, we lost a good one with him. His books were insane good, and they're fat, but they're not like small books. Like, it depends on the size. Too is if it's one of the bigger ones. Some are like 400 or 500 pages. Excuse me. I don't know. Holy shit. But the best time I found, and I want to get back into it, was 2 times. One is during my break, and obviously I'm in different company now. It's different now, obviously. So I don't have time to do it during my break. I realize that already. But all right, ready? I'm gonna grind some people's ears right now. Ready, guys? when I'm taking a fucking shit. I usually always keep a book.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get. I was gonna pose the question more artfully or tactically than what you just said, but in addition, so to the group, in fact we got to start putting some polls up. So again, in future shows, we need to learn how to do polls and put those up. So again, for those who are in the chat, where do you prefer to read? So again, one question, the first question was, what do you read? What genres do you read?
TMI.
Secondly, yes, indeed, way too much. Secondly, where do you prefer to read? Are you a morning reader? Some people I know like to get up at the crack of dawn and put that time, especially I know for the Bible. I know a lot of people. I know I have a sister-in-law. She gets up at like at 4:30 every morning to read her. She's got to be in her word at 4:30 in the morning. So some people do that at the crack of dawn. Some people like to get up and read the morning paper or the magazine in the morning. Some people like to read before going to bed. Some people, just make time. And we're going to talk about that tonight, that the amount of time that you actually devote to reading. So some people before bed. And again, some people, they get their read on in the commode. Again, I'm going to be artful in my use of terminology tonight. So some people in the commode, they like to get their reading on. We're going to keep this respectful tonight. So where do you find you getting your reading in tonight? I'm really yes. You don't want to gross out the crowd tonight. I mean, let's keep this above board. But what do you prefer to read? I mean, do you have a time? Or if you are an avid reader, is there a time that you set aside? Like, so for some people, again, not everybody might be into TV or movies or whatever. You may read in prime time. So that is your pastime. So evening time when everyone's watching primetime television, you might be curled up in a good book right there. Or you may be one. Now me, I'm a person that oftentimes my best reading is also out of the house. In other words, I read best when I'm in a library or in a bookstore. So you got Barnes and Noble, or we used to have Borders Books and Music out here. I would certainly spend time there, on a long car ride where I'm not driving, on an airplane, some environment outside of my home, because sometimes I find home is oftentimes a bit too distracting. You got the kids, you got the dog, you got the TV on and whatnot. Sometimes if I really want to read, especially for pleasure, bless you. If you really want to read for pleasure, I need to be in a place that's sort of outside and separate from that. So that was the same case even in school. When I really wanted to read for college, I would go to the library. But reading inside my dorm room, a lot of times it was too just so again, Catellia, so you're the opposite. You have to be home to read. Oftentimes I have to be outside of home in order to read because of, like I said, the distractions that come with that. Or sometimes if I'm in the car, like I used to take breaks at work and I would go to my car and I would get 15, 20 minutes of reading in the car. But being in the place where I'm doing my business is a lot of times a place where I can't read. So for the folks in the chat, where do you prefer to read? What time do you prefer to read? And do you have to have a certain place? Do you have a certain place in your house? Do you have like a nice couch or sofa with the lamp and all that? Where do you like to kind of get that time in? Please share in the chat as well. We'd love to get that. And again, in the future, hopefully we can get some metrics just to get the reading patterns of our particular audience. But all those things matter. I know me, like I said, my world gets so crazy with work and just everything that's involved in it. I have to be in that isolated space if I really want to not only just read something, but also to comprehend something. And I have to have a certain mood environment. I even have to have certain sounds on because, like I said, I really can get focused. I talked about this. We had a show talking about music, and I talked about I have to have on certain sounds, certain noises. So I'll use like a brown noise or like the sound of an airplane or something that helps to deaden, because my mind can be racing at certain times where I have so many distractions. It's actually hard to focus on the reading, especially if I really want to learn something from it. So a lot of times I will put on some sort of white noise or some sort of noise sound that helps to deaden all those thoughts in my mind. So it helps me focus in on what I need to read. So I don't know if anybody else does that, But for me, it's been very useful over the years. And it's definitely, like I said, that train or that long ride to work. Yeah, absolutely. But again, to me, it's the sound of the road. It's the road noise, the tires on the ground that has a certain sound that allows me to focus. And so with that, that really helps me to get a perspective. Braxton said he has to have some black coffee, tea, or sparkling water. So again, having your favorite drink, having your favorite beverage with you. You might have some herbal tea or something like that. To get you into a mode to actually read. Certainly I'm very curious as far as, with that.
You started talking about like the old school coffee shop, bookstores that usually have a Starbucks in them too.
Well, that's why, yes, absolutely. And I think because when you think about it, a lot of those stores, I think they actually probably made more money from the Starbucks and the coffees and whatnot than the books, because you didn't see the book. It wasn't like the lines for checkout were huge on the books, but the coffee shops were full, but people would be there to simply relax. Because again, home can be a chaotic environment for some people. And so again, if you really want to lounge, I mean, I think the whole idea with Starbucks in general is not so much the coffee. Some people love the coffee, some people don't love the coffee at Starbucks. But I think what Starbucks provided was an environment to relax in, a lounge atmosphere that was quiet. It wasn't hustling and bustling, where you can, kind of relax and chill, and again, get into your book and have your scone and coffee or whatever, and be in your environment. So I definitely think that the environment that you read in is important, unless you're just one of those voracious readers where that's just what you do. But I haven't met too many of those, and especially not adults who are really into it that way. But watering hole until that was it. It just gave you that environment that you wanted to relax in. Absolutely. So I want to know about, from the audience, in terms of those parameters, what you read, where you read, what time that you read, and what sets the proper ambiance for you to get that in. And then also, do you set parameters on how long you read? So again, all of us are crunched for time, especially in this environment. We're all hustling and bustling. Some people, it's like, they have like a discipline. I got to read 15, 20 minutes a day. Some people, it's like you could read for several hours and then not read again for several hours. So again, do you set a particular clock or time limit on the amount you read? Do you set a timer or something like that? Or do you just read until you get tired of reading? Or you read until you get to a place where you can, like a good stopping point, you put the bookmark in and then go on to the next one. Go ahead, Peter.
So when I used to read, and now you make me get back into it, son of a bitch. But when I used to read and I get a good book, like at first, how every book, every story is slow, right? But when it starts getting good, it sucks you in, kind of like you're deep into it. And when you're into it, like I can't put it down. I just want to keep going and going and going and going. Like I need to know. I know what happened to Jack. Like Jack is running to the left, right. What the hell is going on? Like I need to find out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me very engaged.
Yeah. Because reading is people say it's an art, but it's a discipline. It's a focus.
It's both.
That if you really want to get the most out of that what you are reading, especially, like I said, for me, I don't read a lot of fiction, or I don't read a lot of books that are specifically for enjoyment. So I don't read a lot of stories. But again, if I need to comprehend something, especially if I have to study something, like if I'm getting a certification, or if I'm getting I have to pass a course or something like that. Yeah, if I'm not in that environment, right, then I'm going to sleep. You know what I mean? It's like, there have been several times I've met it. Started out with a book, and then 10 minutes later, I get up and that book is on my chest. Because again, I didn't set the proper parameters to get the most out of reading. So that's and again, that place, even though is offended by the whole bathroom thing. But again, for certain people, again, that's if your life is that hectic, sometimes that's the only time you have for yourself. I know people at work, they go into you see them going into the bathroom with a book in their hand, and they just do. So yeah, they're not always there doing their business. Yeah, so they're not always doing their business, but they're definitely certainly looking to utilize that little time that they do have for that. Whether we think it's gross or not, it's the reality that we're in. But I want to share some stats. I don't know if Boss Man's in the back. I want to talk about some of the trends that are there. So, Boss Man, if you're back, or if I don't know if you stepped away for a minute. Okay, so you had to put the skid back. So we'll keep it going. But there definitely seems to be trending. Obviously, young people especially aren't reading the way they used to. Again, we have the devices, we have the tablets and whatnot, which also gets to another question that I'm talking about now. Are you the type of reader? I mean, obviously we're in a digital age, and that's a fact. Even though there's still books, more and more people are going to digital platforms to read, ebooks. I remember when the Kindle first came out a few years back, and some of those features that were with a Kindle. Are you, so asking generally, and even for you, Pete, do you prefer to read an act? Do you have to have a physical book in your hand? So a solid piece, a book in your hand. So here I got tabs, I got bookmarks, I got highlighters, I got all kinds of stuff going through this book here. Or are you more comfortable in a digital space where you can have like your tablet or your smartphone or whatever? And again, this is also for the crowd as well. What as far as your reading medium, do you prefer digital, or is your house covered with books like this bookshelf in the back of me here, where you have to have that pages frayed up and brown and stuff like that, and highlighted and underlined and tabs and the covers coming off of it and whatnot? Are you that type of person who, if you don't have a physical book in your hands, you don't think like it's really reading? Because I do know some people who are like that if it's not real in their hand, they can't read. So what about you, Peter? What say you when it comes to that?
I have 50-50 here, because I like having to download a book to my phone, because I can be anywhere, even in the bathroom. Just for a few people, I just need to know where I'm at. Because I don't always have time to go grab my book out of my bag or my locker. You go, did the old shuffle pants thing and a book in under the armpit kind of thing. No. Sometimes this is always with me, even when I'm taking a shit. So this is convenient for me.
Can you please keep the language more PG? Your grocer Kateya out. Kateya is one of our members. She's clearly grossed by this conversation. Can we please just say that you're in the commode? All right. Can we just raise it just a little bit?
One of our prescribers, hang on, Kateya, honey, is out of love. So don't take it personal. I'm like, what can I tell you? When something I need to go.
Yes, right. We know, and just leave it there. Just cut. We don't need to know what you're doing in that time or whatever. Just say you're in the place.
You know what? Yeah. For our prescribers,
we gotta appeal to the peeps, man.
Hey, that's where I'm going with this. Give me a second. Next time I go to the bathroom, I'm gonna take you a picture of it. Okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, he knows not what he said he does.
Thank you.
Please forgive him. I'm working on him. We need to hang out more. Hopefully, I can have a positive impact on Peter going forward. But that's so again. This is so we're clearly the odd couple here, right? So this is Felix and Oscar, and I think we all know who Oscar is on this show. But in any event, so some people, Eric, he says I'm old school. But he's old school, like he's got to have the vinyl record. So he's retro and all that. So none of these MP3s and all this kind of stuff, none of this digital stuff. He wants vinyl records. He wants the books and whatnot. So what do you guys What do you guys prefer? Do you guys have to have the physical book? So the sound of turning pages while reading a book. So she likes that. It's interesting because I know the Kindle kind of gave you that feature also. Whether you swipe left or swipe right, it's supposed to animate like the page is turning. It doesn't just go to the next page or go up and down. It was supposed to kind of give you that book-like experience when you're reading. But yeah, some people just like taking the thumb like that and turning the page to the next one and holding it up there. Some people are just brought up with that, so they prefer that. But yeah, everyone else just chime in. You want the book? Yeah, the Kindle actually does do that, in fact. But it seems like you still prefer the licking the thumb and turning the page kind of thing versus the Kindle or any other any other device.
So I think please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not positive. I think you can download a Kindle app on your iPhone too, right?
You probably could. Yeah. I mean, these days, I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if there's still Kindles left, because I think, certainly with the smartphones, they came up. I mean, certainly. Yes. Yeah, so they're definitely, the smartphones have definitely caught up to where a Kindle, the physical Kindle, may not necessarily be necessary. The software may be, but not necessarily buying a separate. So to have a phone and a Kindle or what have you, then yeah, I mean that would be overdone by that. But yeah, I mean, so what we're seeing here is certainly the methods with which people read is certainly back. So Boss Man is back. So Boss Man, if you could just bring up that PowerPoint. So I just want to talk about, the decline in reading. Again, we have all these distractions down in terms of, again, online, video, web, internet, social media and whatnot. So we're seeing here, trends in people in terms of 9-year-olds, who back in the day you might have read almost every day. So that's certainly declined, certainly over the years. And some people who, from 1984 to 2020, for a lot of people who've barely read, you do have some more people who are, can't be, who've never read, but seem to be reading more. But, definitely there seems to be a decline in actual readership. And then we're talking about those who read for fun, not just reading for school or you have an assignment. I'm talking about people who want to pick up a good book. I know with my kids, they loved, what were some of the books? The Angry Kid, I think, was a series that they got into. They weren't really big into the Harry Potter stuff or whatever, but I know there were certain, there were certain books that they got into for pleasure. But generally, they were more, again, TV, video, animated type of people. But you see here that just overall, people are simply not reading at the rates that they might have done 40 years ago. And that trend also seems to be increasing. You got another stat here. Again, girls generally tend to read more than boys. That's all. But again, even though that trend is on the decline, again, girls tend to be more avid readers. Might be guys are more action oriented. Even back in the day, you went outside, you played sports, baseball, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, girls, back then, unless you were into that, if you were more so into the, into being outside as much, but certainly guys with, activities and whatnot, certainly typically read less than girls do. What you also have is, again, U.S. students who read for fun in their own time by ethnicity. So again, and these are trends. So every ethnic group, even amongst Asians, who seem to be amongst the most avid readers, even their numbers have come down over time. Now, certainly for Native Americans, it's interesting that they have a pretty high readership rate, but there doesn't seem to be any trends. But I think those metrics weren't necessarily captured back then. So again, that's probably why they don't have statistics on it. But you see it's across the board, whether it be for 9-year-olds or 13-year-olds, people are reading less. And so some of that, I would have to think you would have to put that on parents, in that, at what ages are we introducing our kids to books? Or I know for a lot of parents, again, it's the activities. So again, you have a lot of kids, especially boys, you're putting them into football and baseball and all of these sports at early ages. As soon as they can put on, flag football or PAL or whatever, you're putting them into these activities. And that's becoming certainly a more increasing amount of time spent in activities versus having that alone time to read. I mean, yeah, you might be able to read on the car ride to the game or after the game or on the bus. But again, those are typically not areas where you're doing that because everyone's interacting. But so again, how much of this do we put on parents that we're not introducing our kids or insisting that kids carve out reading time again for fun? We're not talking about required in order to pass a grade in school, but actually for recreation. That is something that, I think a lot of parents are choosing other recreational pursuits, dance or some other activity, Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or some other Cub activity where people are using that time, to, rather than having time to read, especially for pleasure. Here, this is also why I read the question about the trends in terms of what people are reading. So book print is still the majority of readership. However, again, audiobooks and digital medium is also starting to catch up. So again, it's interesting. On the right, it says a third of Americans say they read both print and digital books within the past year. I think some people in the chat did that, but it's interesting. You still have well over 20% of people who haven't read a book all year. So again, I don't want to judge that. I don't want to, for whatever reason, work or just no interest in it. And it could be for some people, they have a disability that doesn't allow them to read. And so, we're going to talk about that also as far as the advance in audiobook format, because that is certainly something that I think certainly has a place. So again, you have people who read 33% read both print and digital books. Some people only read. This is why I asked the question. Some people, about a third, only read print books, and some people only read digital books only. And so, so again, I can see that also because it's rare to even today when how many people today, I'm talking about millennials, zennials, and younger, how many of them today in the homes that they live in are going to have a bookshelf like the one that's in my background here, and even the ones I do have some of these times. So I'm seriously thinking about doing a massive book giveaway because I got to be honest, a lot of the books that I've read, more than likely, I will probably not get into again anytime soon. So unless it's like a classic, I think I'm just going to do just a massive book giveaway just to clear the space. Because for a lot of people, they just don't have the space or capacity. Imagine moving, and a good portion of your move is a ton of boxes and boxes of books that you just move with you anywhere. But the reality is, how often are you going to go back to that book that you read? So again, a phone or an app can hold hundreds of books in your device. So for a lot of people who are more practical that way, that may be a preferred form rather than having age books that you're not going to crack the open on, that a lot of people die and have either those books discarded, or if you're proactive enough, again, you'd still have groups and companies that still do book drives. And so, to give those books to those into countries where books aren't available, there's certain countries, we take for granted that we have all of this literature at our disposal to read, even though there's efforts to remove some books. And, that's a totally different stuff I'm not going to get into. But there's countries around the world where people simply don't have access or the means or the money to read certain titles. And so, for a lot of us, we may have to make that move to say, hey, I got books, I got titles. Hey, if there's a drive or whatever, give away your old books so that someone else could hopefully benefit from that. A lot of times you can just drop them off at your local library, and there's trucks, there's mobile vans that come around that collect books and whatnot. But but the trends are certainly such where this is changing, where the digital format is coming into play. Has some additional stats here on the audiobook market. Now, this, I think, Peter, is where I think someone like yourself would benefit, because you do say you have a disability, as far as the reading and the writing. So for a lot of people, the audiobook market, because one, I think partly because of time, that again, because our lives are so hectic, it's hard to carve out that time for yourself where you cuddle up with a good book. And so for a lot of people, If you got an hour commute to work, then that time could be utilized with an audiobook of some kind, of any format, whether it be fiction or anything else. And so we're seeing here the statistics and the trend go. So right now, 2022, $5 billion. Again, the book market overall is huge. I mean, the physical book share is growing, but we can see this trend line that over in coming years, it's going to have a smaller share. So by 2030, the projection is going to be that 21% of all reading is going to be through audiobook form. And I don't know if we're necessarily going back from that. Now, some people might be disheartened by that, but we have to accept the reality that, again, the audiobook format is giving more options that people are going for. And I would think, Peter, for someone like yourself, if that's a challenge for you, I know you're, certainly trying to overcome that, to read more, to improve your literary reading ability. But audiobooks can be a great addition to that. So what do you think about that as far as that trend line going upwards?
So I have mixed feelings behind this. Because if you do the history, audiobooks been around for a long time before Amazon was around. Remember, you get those books that had a cassette in it? That's an audiobook.
Yeah, volumes. You're right. Yeah.
So people are bashing them, but don't bash them because they've been around for a long time. So do your math first before you open your mouth. 1, 2. I used to do the audiobooks a lot, actually, when I used to drive 45 minutes or an hour of work. So 45 minutes or an hour, that ride gets a little lonely sometimes. So plugging that, video, the audiobook in, yeah, it helps make the time go faster driving. Now that I drive only 8 minutes, it's not even a point anymore. It can help, but it can also hurt you because you're driving. I mean, you're not reading. Excuse me. So because you're dependent on that the recording. Even same thing with AirPods in. They read your text for you now. Or you could put a setting in there on your phone that they can read everything for you. So yeah, that is an issue in my opinion, because we're reading less and less and less. I think in the next couple of years it's going to be a instinct art, like butcher. A butcher thing's not around anymore as much.
Right.
So I think reading would be the same thing.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I know, for example, because typically you learn reading and writing together. You learn your alphabet, you learn how to script and write. I know that certainly in schools today, I know a lot of them are removing, for example, the ability to write in cursive. So I know a lot of, again, you go to school now, you go with a laptop. So again, most of your school papers are going to be typed. Most of your, assignments and essays are going to be typed. And for a lot of people, writing, like even your name, like, back in the day, you're like, I write, when you sign your name on something, do you write your name, or you just have a signature?
I have a signature. Yeah,
I write my name. I mean, I still, I do it in cursive. That's my name. Like people who just go scribble a signature, I've never done that. I don't even know why that's honestly accepted in a lot of places. But I was taught very early on how to write my name in cursive. And I still write my name when I sign it. When I sign a check, when I sign anything, I still write my name in cursive. And so I know a lot of schools have gone away from requiring cursive writing as a taught skill in schools, which I think is because I think a lot of schools are not requiring it anymore. Like back when I was in grammar school, you had to write papers in cursive.
The kids I work with at work, they don't know how to write a script, and they're already in college or they're about to graduate high school. It's not a requirement, at least in PA right now. Or let me put that in the county I live in PA. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about Philly and other a lot of people I worked with nobody writes cursives anymore. Like that's like
I think that has an impact on reading, because again, if you have to read like a lot of historic documents, like if you look at the Declaration of Independence, a lot of these documents, a lot of them are written in cursive. So if you don't understand it, it's going to look like hieroglyphs to you. If you don't understand what cursive is, I mean, when you see I used to think, a capital Q, the way they used to draw it up in my school, it looked like a number 2 with a curly on it. it had to be explained to me that no, that's actually a capital Q. That's how you do it, or an S, a capital S, the way you did it in script. So if you had to go back and read something that was written in cursive, some hand notes or some, again, people wrote letters to one another. Generally, they wrote them in cursive. Now everyone texts and emails and things of that nature. So you wonder whether or not this is going to have an impact on people's ability to comprehend. I wouldn't even call it ancient, but if you can't even understand your mother's writing or your father or grandfather's writing, because probably a lot of things that he might have wrote might have been in cursive, because that's, again, how people were taught to write, and then people started writing more in print, and now we're in a digital space where things are typed. When I got to college, again, writing in cursive wasn't required. All essays had to be typed, and I remember that, so it had to be double spaced in essays, and you would turn those essays in, but nobody wrote. When I got to college, I had a typewriter, and I moved from the typewriter to my first Mac computer, and that's how I did my essays and schoolwork and everything. And so, that was certainly a requirement. But now, certainly those things are gone. So I definitely think that, agree. But there's other cursive writings also that we need to be mindful of. But point taken, though. But I'm just showing here again. So just know, and this is one of the reasons why I still like reading to an extent over audiobooks. I am a graphics guy. I am a visual guy. So a lot of times, whether it be in print or whether it be in audio format, oftentimes you can write down a bunch of statistics. But I think the one thing about the print medium, whether it be digital or in the books, the physical books, is charts like this. Like, so again, here you had some statistics being covered, but I think the charts and the graphs, which you oftentimes find in books, it helps to bring some context. You can see trends. It communicates things that are not necessarily you can get from just hearing the numbers. So here you see, again, the growing trend, making sense of those numbers, how, again, by 2030, audiobooks are going to be a major share of the reading market. And again, just another one, we see that, again, the increase in revenue since 2015, the growth in the use of audiobooks. But one thing that you did mention, Peter, was, so some people believe that, again, audiobooks may limit your capacity for reading. Now, here's an article from, again, this Canadian news, cbc.ca, talks about this. So the guy, he basically says that, prefer listening to your books. It's not that different from reading. And so this is a professor who talks about this. And he makes the argument that you don't necessarily lose a lot in terms of comprehension when you listen to an audiobook versus reading an actual book. Now, again, for a lot of people, that doesn't feel right. In fact, even the person who's asking the questions, he questioned that. So he asked a question here. I just want to read it, and then we can get back into the discussion. So he says, do you know what happens in our brains where we're listening to a story rather than reading the story? So here's this professor. He says, the interesting thing is that what's happening in our brains, there's a lot of overlap in those two cases. It's not identical, but there is overlap. An easy way to appreciate this is to think of a child who cannot read yet, but they go to school and they're going to learn how to read. Well, by the time the children start school, they have already oral language in place. So I mean, they can speak and they can understand when someone is speaking to them. So listening comprehension is already in place by the time they start reading. And when they learn how to read, it's not just as though they are going to learn a new mental process for reading comprehension. They're just using the process they already have in place in their brain that they've been using for listening comprehension. So what he's saying is, whether you listen to an audiobook or whether you read something, your ability to comprehend will not change. But obviously, the ability to interpret the graphics and letters on the page, obviously, that is a skill that you will acquire, but you will not acquire any more or any less. So if you already know how to read and write and ability to comprehend, you're not going to see a severe drop-off, at least according to, again, this one person's opinion. You're not going to see a drop-off in your comprehension of the material, whether you get it in an audio format or a written format. But certainly I do believe it's still important. Obviously, kids need to learn how to read, how to know what those letters are, how to conjugate, how to, especially in the English language, which is probably one of the most messed up. I think English in general is one of the messed up languages because it's not phonetic, right? There's other languages. So Greek to me seems very phonetic from what I've seen of it so far, meaning you write it the way you say it. But in English, like through, like if you ever spell THROUGH, it doesn't yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
You as it sounds, yes, but here's the issue sometimes in Greek language.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 different S's. You have an S that starts in the beginning. S might be for a comma or a sentence or an ending S. It depends what are you talking about. So that S could change the whole word around because you use the wrong S. 3 S's. You have 3 I's. You got 3 A's sometimes. I think there are 5 or 6 letters or 3 of them. I can't remember off my head, to be honest with you. But that can throw you off a little bit. The Greek language is the second hardest language in the world to learn.
Is it?
Yeah. So keep that in mind when you're saying it. Yeah, some words might sound like say stupid, for example. It sounds like you put it on paper, boom, you're done. But you have to understand how you put down stupid. It makes a difference. Am I making sense here?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Boss man. That's it right there. There, and there. The English language is totally messed up. Or if you change the first letter of a word, it changes how you say the word, even though everything after that, like through and cough, right? It's a different phonetic, but all you change was the first 3 letters. The ending is the same, but it sounds different. Through, you don't even pronounce the G and the H. How there's silent words, there's silent G's, there's silent P's. There's there's style, all yeah, exactly. So English is hard enough even just to learn and comprehend, let alone when you have to read and study these things and get good at the grammar of it. So you already have some complexities there. But I think that I still want to make a case for the audiobook format because, again, I mean, time is a crunch. I mean, I don't know if you, I talked about last month. I had a release. I was putting in 16-hour days. You know what I mean? Which included the reading that I had to do for the project that I was on. I got to read requirements and specs and things like that. So, to be honest, a lot of times. Absolutely. A lot of times it's like when I get home, the last thing I want to do is read. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been, when I'm in business requirements all day long, I don't want to see anything. I want to listen to something. I want to watch something, and usually I want to watch something physical. So I'm putting the football game on. I'm putting the professional wrestling on. I'm putting on something to get away from everything. So the idea of me curling up with a good book to relax and chill down, I'm like, I got to turn my brain off from, I got too much input going in, and I just want to, decompress a little. So books have never been used in certainly in my world to decompress. But when you're in one of those sort of high stress type of jobs and situations, or sometimes it looks like if you're a teacher, for example, and you've been grading papers all day and reading stuff all day and correcting grammar all day, do you really want to read when you get home?
It's like being a cook, Paul. Like I cook all fucking day. Exactly. I fucking cook when I get to fucking home.
No, I know cooks have the worst diets in the world because it's like, I had a friend of mine. He was like, you know what? When I get home, I'm going to make me a bologna sandwich and call it a day. That's it. Like you're cooking high-end meals and chef meals and stuff like that. I'm just going to make me a bologna sandwich and go to bed. I mean, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go to bed. I don't want to be involved anymore. I'm done.
Dude, sometimes I just get takeout. Simple. Uber Eats, easy. 1, 2, 3, done. But again, it goes back to what we're saying, Paul. It's like when you do this all day long, you don't want to do it at home. reading is becoming harder and harder and harder. People think my disability is like if you look at me and say, "Oh, you're stupid," like, first of all, you call me stupid, I'm gonna knock your goddamn teeth out because I'm a lot smarter than you. Second, it's very common. They did a video a while back. I can't remember who was it. A social experiment about somebody being, he doesn't know how to read, and he was making all these excuses. I don't have glasses with me. I don't have this. I don't have that, and people were making fun of him. But reality was, he didn't know how to read because he had all the technology around him, did it for him for years.
Yeah.
So we're going to that level at that point. Like, my disability, people think like, how is that disability? It is a real disability, believe it or not. It's not common, but it is.
But I think, I think to the point you're making, though, the question is going to be, though, are we building a house of cards? That will eventually, if everything is going to be done for us, we're going to have, it's like out of the Jetsons or something, right? I mean, you're going to have the robots reading to you, but if you don't have these essential skills to read, to write, if we ever had to go back to a time when those were going to be essential skills, well, we have them. And so, this technical age certainly puts, I think, even though it makes things easier for us, the ability to put in the work in order to, have and keep these skills mastered, I think is important. It's weird. Like a lot of times, and it's like a muscle, like there are times when I still, now again, I don't know, people do this. I still have a book, like a memo book where I still write stuff down. Yes, I have notes that I type up, or you can get one of those tablets that has the stylus pen, and you can write your notes and scribble and whatnot. I still prefer, when it comes to note taking, I still prefer pen and paper rather than, the digital format sometimes. Because again, but it's weird because if you don't do it for a while, it's like your wrist starts, your hand starts to get, just like any kind of physical exercise, your fingers start getting tired. Especially if you're in a big lecture hall or whatever, or a class or something, you're writing notes for several hours. And even then, sometimes I'll even forget. So sometimes I'll write in cursive and sometimes I'll write in print because I got real good at print from my drafting days in high school. So I learned how to, write print pretty fast as well. So I'll go back and forth, but it's just amazing how even with your cursive, unless you do it like on the regular, like all the time, you can still do it, but it doesn't flow the way it might have did before. So it's just like an exercise. You have to keep practicing your cursive. You have to write in cursive on a regular basis. Otherwise, you will get sore. Just like it's like you haven't gone to the gym for months. You go back to the gym and then you start working out again. It's like, oh my gosh, you can't realize how sore you are. You have to be in that practice if you want to do it. And so I'm just wondering if we're building this house of cards where if information is going to be fed to us rather than reading it.
So Loss has a good comment here. It says you can tell when somebody uses Chat GTP, and you do. But let me ask you a question: how many of us? Oh, actually, this is a question for the chat. I'm serious. How many of you guys actually use Chat GPT to cheat on a comment or a text or a paragraph or whatever you're doing? How many of you guys use Chat GPT to cheat? I use it all the time. I'm not gonna lie. When I'm stuck on a when I put a prescription on my channel, I use Chat GTP to cheat sometimes. Very simple. I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to put this down on the prescription. I go, oh, click, 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 click. 30 seconds, not even. I'm always reacting to. Like not even less than a second, I probably have everything. You may not use it. One person just said, Catalina, but everybody else does. Some people use it. I'm a fan of it. But
yeah, I've used it. I think Lost. He mentioned he uses it for ideas. I've used it like in work situations. So like I know last job I was at, we had implemented a new database. And we were having some issues as far as getting some of the tech support from Oracle and some of these other places. So sometimes we may put it in because, again, you have Oracle chat rooms and you have people, these places where people share information. So I've used it on occasion to try to find solutions to problems. If it's a configuration issue or something like that, I've used it, but I never used it in terms of like how to write a resume. I know when I got put my resumes out, I actually went to an actual person who actually writes resumes or is just good with grammar in general, and I have her proofread my stuff. But I know some people use Chat GPT to write resumes and college essays and things of that nature. But no, I've never used it for that purpose.
I got a better one for you. You're going to shit your pants on this one. Not literally. But remember the conversation we had in the car about dating apps the other day?
Yeah.
Right? Some people use Chat GPT to make their profile?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised people are using it more and more.
Yeah.
It's free now, but eventually I think they're going to start charging us for that. Wait, because everything's getting charged now. Nothing free anymore like it used to be.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if money can be made from the medium, they'll definitely try to do that. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that but I want to get an idea also from the chat. Okay, when it comes to reading time, right? So again, these are for people who, again, if you don't read much, then again, you don't have to answer this. But how much time do you think you give yourself? In fact, I might have asked it in a different way earlier. Do you like read 15, 20 minutes? You just put that in a day and just leave it there, or do you read until you stop reading? But generally, when you do have time to read, because really, I think that's really the certainly one of the factors. No, everyone says I don't have time, and that could be through. I mean, you got the kids in your ear. If you're a young mother or just parents in general, you got your kids up all night. I know Boss Man. I know he's got to put the baby to bed at times. What are maybe a better way to phrase this question is, what are some of your excuses? Now, I'm not here to judge the excuse, because we all got them, right? But, and I know some people are pretty hardcore when it comes to the reading. I know Catellia, she's really into her reading. But what are some of the things? What are some of the blockers? What are some of the things that you would like to improve in terms of your time allotment? Because a lot of this comes down to time management. But what are some of your time stealers? What are some of the things that are keeping you from, again, spending that time with, with the stuff that you need to be reading? So for a lot of spiritual people, yeah, you may say, look, you know what, I need to read my Bible more, or my Quran more, or whatever your book is. I need to spend some more time in the Word. What are some of the blockers that are keeping you from that? Or if maybe you have some books that you bought, maybe someone gifted you with some books that you were really interested in, maybe some novels of some kind that you wanted to read, and you just, for whatever reason, what are those time stealers that are keeping you from getting that time in? And let's talk about that, because maybe, and if you, or I'll take it even further, maybe that was you at one point in time who had those blockers, who had those distractions. What did you do in order to overcome that factor that stopped you from reading? So again, boss man, housework, okay, the work itself, husband duties, yard work, yeah, all those things are certainly in place. But if you were going to carve out, if you would like to read more, what could you do, or what advice would you give? And this is for people in chat who do have that sense of reading. Quincy talks about 30 to 60 minutes daily, which is excellent. But I have no kids, so it's easier to read without any obligation. Yeah, kids will mess up your activities, cooking. All those things will mess up your days. And again, a lot of times, hey, Bolo TV, man, good to hear from you. Thanks for stopping on through here tonight. But what are some of those blockers? What are some of those things that keep you from reading? And if you've had that issue in the past, but you were able to overcome it, how were you able to overcome it? All right, so I'd appreciate people sharing in the chat the little tricks and life hacks, if you will, that allow you to read more than what you're doing right now. So, Peter, any thoughts on that? Like, so if you wanted to, up your reading and whatnot, or even if, whether it be audiobook or whatever, what would you need? What would you think you need to do in order to up that?
First of all, there's a couple things I would do. I have a bunch of books I want to read myself. I'm not going to deny it. I've been slacking on it. I've been saying I'm going to do it, but I never do it. But I'm going to. So one, I'm going to put the one book right next to my toilet after I'm done here.
Just leave it there. Leave it there. All right. Again, the commode. I'm not done.
Hang on. I'm not done.
The commode. Can you say that? Can you just say that for me one time?
I didn't say shit this time.
Can you say that for me one time? The commode.
Commode.
The commode.
Commode.
Commode. See, that sounds good.
The men's
room.
The
commode. I'll take that too. I'll take that to the office.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave one in Mr. Bennett's office. Second, I'll probably download a book on my phone tonight to have it on with me.
Right.
Because there are times I might have a free minute. Like maybe I do get. I always go early to work. So I always scroll through Facebook. Someone says, "This is a good time." But now,
hey, black man backs you up. Black man is right with you there.
Thank you. For once, the Texan agrees with the Greek. It has to be a miracle. I think we have a treaty or something going on, or something like that. So like, is something going to happen I don't know about yet? I'm scared now. Anyway, back to the subject. Seriously, we need to figure. Download on your book. We will make time if you have the book on your phone. Where's one thing you always carry everywhere you go, Paul?
Oh, it's definitely the phone. No question.
Yeah, it's two things I carry. My everyday carries is my watch, my Apple Watch, and my iPhone 15 Pro Max. By the way, I'm not that fancy or 16 yet, but my point is trying to get to. I carry those two things with me all the time. Some other things I carry too, but those are two major things. So, if I have a phone downloading a book downloading my phone, then I think I'm gonna always have time to read one, and not play a game.
Well, that could be. See, again, you at one hand you set up the convenience of having the book on your phone, but on the other hand, that's a source of distraction. Like I know for me, for example, I have very few alerts. Like all these apps, social media apps, I have no alerts turned on. The only app, the one that I have alerts turned on for is for again, work related, so again we have Teams, Microsoft Teams, and then we have a Slack app or whatnot, but that's like sort of work related. But a lot of times that thing which you think gives you time can also be a distraction also. If you got alerts popping up every 5 minutes on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, or TikTok or something, then you could start to read something. But then you get into that thing and that rabbit hole, right? You get on TikTok, you get on social media, you hit the thing or whatever, you like that, you find something else, you get down that rabbit hole where it takes you 20 minutes to get back to why you got on the thing on the first place. So that's why for a lot of people, they would still say, get a book, like a physical book. If you have to go to the commode, you take the book, the physical book with you.
Toilet, God damn it, is a toilet.
And leave your phone outside. How about that? Leave your phone outside. Take the book with you. Again, for those who, like I say, your case might be a little bit different because again, I certainly recognize your situation. But for some people, the convenience of the phone can at the same time be a distraction.
Yeah. And I understand. Hang on a second, my seat keep getting screwed up today. There we go. I feel short. I'm very short enough. Here's why I'm going to push back. You could always put a sleep mode on your phone or airplane mode so those things don't come in when you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
You always find a way to block those.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you have it in your phone, you get more chance of reading it than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I know times I caught myself reading articles in here. That's still reading, right?
Well, oh, so what's the question? I'm sorry. Could tell you.
Yes, I do actually. If she wants to know,
see, I don't want to go into this discussion. This is scat humor. We don't need to go here. We're just
so much.
Yes, the porcelain throne. Yes, And again, not all of us go there just for the business. So like I said, that might be the quietest place in the house, to get away from it all. But again, I don't want to have this devolve into that discussion tonight. But Peter, continue your point regarding what you were just talking about before we got so really interrupted.
Part about the book or my babble memes?
The book, though. Please, the book. Get back to the book, please. Let's move on. That's all I can tell you. So you keep getting this thing going. Yeah, we get it. You're offended by it. Yes, we get that. But we're never going to move off of this. Yes, more fiber.
You guys keep asking about my mat movement. I'm gonna start taking pictures and post them on Black Men's.
As you were saying, grooming. As you were saying. Lord help us today.
Have it in your phone. I feel you have more chance to open that app and read it.
Mm-hmm.
You know is there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like playing a game, it's conscious is there. Like you're bored, you're sitting in the car waiting for your appointment. Let me play 5 minutes of Stretches or Bingo or Uno or whatever you have on your phone, right? But then you don't do that. You open the whatever book app you have instead. Think about it. You have it, you have more chance. That's all I'm saying.
You got distraction at the same time. Yeah, you can go in at the best of intentions. Yeah, I'm gonna read, but then someone dropped something funny to me. Ha ha ha! Yeah, I got into that, and 20 minutes later,
I ignore live messages and texts coming through. To be honest with you.
Like I said, I don't even. Like I said, I'll silence. I will definitely turn stuff off when I need that focus. I'll put my airplane mode on. It's like do not disturb. And so again, I have to be in that mode. And like I said, I'll play those sounds also because, like I said, sometimes even here, if I got too many thoughts going on in my head, it's like I have to sometimes reread a paragraph or a verse over and over again because I'm too distracted. So that's why again I use those sounds, those sound waves, if you will, in order to help keep me on focus. That's just a hack that certainly helped me over I'd say the last 5 years to get a lot more reading done is having those sounds on, those wave sounds on. That definitely got me going.
I'm going to push back. I say that I think the having a book on your phone would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're gonna have it with you always, even if you're in your, on your lunch break and you're sitting eating lunch by yourself. You don't want to carry that book around. When you like the pain in the ass carrying another fucking book around. You're carrying enough shit around all day long. Hey, you know what?
Right.
Here you go. Boom. In back pocket. Oh, hello, phone. Hello, how you doing? Except watching a video during lunch, you can read a little bit. I think having the book down on your phone is better.
Mm. Yeah, I mean it's just turn off the distractions, and again, like I said, I appreciate the opportunity for that, but again, it depends on what I'm doing. If like I said, if I'm studying, and I think studying, and I don't know if people in chat would agree, I think studying is different from reading. Like especially if you're reading for information or if you're reading for enjoyment, when you're studying something, you're trying to get concepts. Again, I gotta have that highlighter. So again, I'm in the middle on this. I can appreciate the convenience of having a book in the hand, but certainly having a physical book where I highlight, where I underline, where I write a little note. Now again, I know a lot of the apps today can give you that same functionality, but it just helps me better to have a comprehension of what it is that I'm reading, and putting that physical bookmark in place where I left off. It, like I said, it's just helpful to me. But like I said, I employ everything. Yeah.
Do you get a lunch break at work?
What's that?
You get a lunch break, right, at work?
Yeah, but to be honest though, these days a lot of times I just work through lunch. Like I'll eat, because I eat several times a day. Like me, I eat like every 3 hours. So I might eat 3 times when I'm at work. So I don't take like a dedicated lunch break per se, but sometimes I'll eat through work or whatnot. But again, if I need it, like if I feel myself lagging a little bit, yeah, I'll take that 15-20 minute and I'll go to like my car or whatever. If I got to take a power nap or something, like I'll make time if I need it to get those breaks in. Or if, like I said, when I was really into a book, like I said, I had to read something. A lot of times, again, I would go to the car. Like I said, a lot of times I can't read a lot of times where I'm working or sometimes when I'm at my home. A lot of times I have to get out of my environment. So the car where it's quiet, and again, I can even put those sounds that I'm talking about, I could put them on my car system, so I'm getting it 360 degrees. So like I simulate like I'm in an airplane or in a car or something like that. Again, I've gotten some very powerful reading and meditation in during that time. That's another point that I want to get to, just bookmarking it so I don't lose it. When you do read, how much time do you devote to meditation on what you read in addition to what you're reading? Because I see a lot of people, especially with spiritual books, a lot of times people read the Bible simply to read it, but they don't put in the meditation to contemplate what is read. And therefore, you're always reading, but a lot of times you're not necessarily comprehending what you read. You haven't taken the time to digest. You just think, well, I got to read a chapter of the Bible a day. But 365 days later, yeah, I read the Bible in a year. But if I come back to you and ask you, well, what did you learn from it? A lot of people can't tell me much. So I'm not a big fan of reading, just reading to be reading. But how much time do you call the skimming? So some people do that. But again, sometimes people in a hurry to say, I finished the book. So like all these titles in the back here, people, a lot of times those books that are up on the shelves, to be honest, I would say that probably half of those books aren't even read halfway through. But it looks good on the shelf to let people know that you are well read. And so people will judge that. But how many of the books that are in back of you that you actually read from cover to cover and got it marked up? I don't know if people are actually doing that. But if a book is that important to you, then take the time to not just rush through the book just to say you read it, but get what you can out of it before you put it down.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You do just go rush through it. Like when I read a book, I know it's kind of scary when me reading a book. Sometimes I have to read the paragraph 2-3 times.
Yeah.
So because I just to process again, I process things a little different than you do, obviously, with my disability and everything. So sometimes I have to read 3-4 times. There's nothing wrong with that. If it makes me go through it, I take my time when I read it. I don't rush through it.
Yeah, and yeah, it's because again, if you're trying to if you're reading for entertainment, like I said, that's why I said fiction. I could see somebody just taking it and just kind of going through and just getting to the end. Because again, it's not meant to inform you per se. In a way, it's kind of a distraction. So again, if you're reading sci-fi or some novels like that, or some of those romantic sex novels or something like that people get into, those Harlequin romance novels or something. If that's your thing, you just do that. It's like if it's like mindless entertainment for you, then that's one thing. You read it, it was funny, it was entertaining. I put it down, and like I said, for a lot of these books, you're probably never going to go back and read them again. Which is another reason why I would probably say that it might be good to have it in a digital format, so you don't just have a bunch of books just compiling that are just taking up space in your house. But again, if it's something where you really have to get in and you want to dig in, a book that you're going to go back to, almost like a reference when you're putting points together, then those are things, again, I think is better when you spend some time in it. But just to say, well, I read this book, I would rather you understand and comprehend a paragraph out of a book rather than you saying, well, I read the entire book. That's just me. I mean, I because you see a lot of people say, oh yeah, I read all, I say, look, I read all that. Yeah. And I think that's the trend, because again, a lot of people, again, imagine again, trying to move. The biggest thing, and I've helped people move, the biggest thing that I've moved is like these book collections. And trust me, those boxes are heavy. Okay. So again, and those books are oftentimes in boxes. My thing is, look, if you put something in a box, if you're moving, if you put something in a box, and you don't need it for the first 2 or 3 weeks you're in the house, you probably don't need what you packed. In other words, that thing does not have to be unpacked. If you packed it, but you have no use for it, that might be a reason to get rid of it. And so again, for a lot of people, they have books and books. And again, I'm guilty of this as well. I'm literally thinking about, again, next year, getting rid of a lot of these titles that are just, that again, they may have benefited me in some instances, but again, I'm not going back and reading these books again. But if there's some organization, again, not every organization is a good one, but if you can find a good organization that would actually get these books in the hands of people who are begging to, have books to read, positive books that, that build people up, then give that to somebody else if you've gotten all that you can out of it.
It's too bad they don't have like a GameStop for books. Like, you trade a book in, you get credit, and then you add it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would keep motivation for people to read or buy more books.
Yeah.
Or I know a lot of people donate their books to the libraries, and that's a good cause.
Yeah. Speaking of libraries, it's interesting. I was watching for the umpteenth time. I don't know how many times I watched this movie. Rollerball. If you haven't seen Rollerball, I highly recommend that you watch Rollerball. 1975, James Caan. Still to this day, one of the greatest sci-fi movies I've ever seen, and a very relevant book even today. Very much worth doing. But one of the subplots in the film was that there started to be, with the digital age, there started to be a removal of print books. That books were being removed from libraries. They were being summarized and cataloged, and sometimes the whole histories were being discarded. So do you think that libraries are going to remain relevant in the future, given the fact that, again, a lot of things are going digital? Is that something that is going to be in our future? Because I remember, and guys, you remember back in the day, right? I remember the card catalog, right? When you went into the library at school and you had to go to that drawer and you had the card catalog, you had to thumb through it like this and find the section where the verse was, or you had the microfiche where you had to go in and find the books that way. I don't think they do that anymore. They just go to the computer, say, I need this book. They look up the title. Oh, it's in this section. You just go there. But those were skills that we learned, how to go through a card catalog to get the book, how to read the microfiche to get old newspaper articles and things like that. But do you think that libraries will be a thing, let's say 100 years from now, if we're around 100, 150 years from now, will libraries still be a thing in the future?
I don't think so. I think we're wasting the time just even having that conversation, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I think they're obsolete. I think everything's online right now. Why would you need to go to a library when you can look it up right here? When last time I stepped in a library, bro?
Mm-hmm.
It's been over 20 to 30 years. No, that's maybe not 30. Maybe 22, 23 years easily.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a library down the street from my house. I have drove it a million times over the years I've been in PA. Never walked in that building once. I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's
Remember a movie? I can't remember the name of it. That it was illegal to own a book. There was a movie made like that.
I don't remember a particular title, but that tends to be a theme of a lot of science fiction.
Yeah, it's science fiction.
Yeah, there's I don't know, it might have been, Fahrenheit 451 or 1984. It could have been any one of measure of those type of movies or books. But again, in a lot of these futuristic films, a lot of it is about the control of information. And so for a lot of these people, they have the idea is, if you want to control a people, control what they have access to read. And the only thing I'll say about that is, certainly you even have efforts in this country to ban books from circulation, or to change the content of books from their original format. I remember, even in Florida, not going to get overly political tonight, but I know in Florida, governor and whatnot, they had these books. They talked about Rosa Parks. And one of the things that they wanted to do was they wanted to remove out of the book that she was a black woman, or that the reason that she was stopped, why she had to sit in the back of the bus, was because she was black. And so they want to remove that. They just she was just a woman on a bus, because they don't want to teach DEI. They don't want to, have this diversity, inclusion in classrooms or whatnot. So you don't want to speak to the realities of what's there. So there's a lot of efforts in some of these states in the U.S., particularly in the South, to ban certain books from circulation. So I think that, to me, is like one of the sort of the beginnings of when a society is going in a different direction, when they try to control what you have access to and what you read. They start, they're really starting to, that's when it gets scary to me. So yeah, as far as libraries, as far as for information, I think people are going to be looking at them as relics, surely in the future. But again, I still love libraries, and that, again, if I have to, the only thing that I don't like about libraries now is just the access. Because a lot of times I get off of work, I get home 7:30, 8 o'clock, and libraries is closing up. So I don't have that time that I would, unless it's on a weekend, like on a Saturday, certainly to go there and have that quiet space and time to really study something. That I do appreciate about the libraries, but the books themselves, yeah, I mean, I think that will be something that will be diminishing in the future. Again, hopefully you can still get a lot of these books in digital form. But one thing that I think Lost spoke about earlier was that one thing about the written book is that it's difficult to edit. So again, when you go to a digital format, again, you can change whole swaths of information that was in the original book. And I know that's even being done with literary books. You come out with a new edition, they change something that might have been controversial in the book the first time, they take it out. So it's not, and then they get rid of the, try to collect all the old titles that had that information and make it say something else. So I think we're definitely going in that direction, where libraries may not be certainly as essential, and that's a lot of jobs and that's a lot of buildings and whatnot. But I think, I think that may be something we may be losing in the future, because again, people are certainly getting their information from other places.
Yeah, I agree with you that, because we have our information in our fingertips, or a mouse, or voice command. Like, you can tell Alexa do whatever, or this and that. Like, I don't think we open a book and trying to find this out is going to be a way anymore. I think that's a dying art. Like I said, I really believe it's a dying art.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. One last thing. I mean, we're in the last 15 minutes of the show. Oh, and just heads up, Steelers are winning 30-15.
Oh, shut up!
In the fourth quarter. So can tell you, looks like we're gonna get another one, and hopefully this will end the Russell Wilson controversy. People are like, why are you starting him over Justin Fields? But it seems like Russell's cooking the night. I'm loving what I'm seeing here. So absolutely that I'm enjoying this.
The movie I was talking about in the chat, because I cannot pronounce the goddamn name. It came out in 1966, but I did a remake in 2018. That is the one.
Yeah, I meant that Fahrenheit 451. Yeah, I knew it was. I get my titles confused, but I know Fahrenheit does that. I think 1984. I think they did some of that as well. But that seems to be a theme always in these sort of dystopian futures, is when they cut off information. Like I said, the movie Rollerball. Like, he was trying to find out about the corporate wars and how societies ran back in the day, and that history was just being removed. The nations, that there were no nations anymore. It was only corporations. And again, when you withhold that information from people, then you're able to, better control the people. And so again, I think it was a great film that I think even today still have relevance. But the only thing I would say about in the last, few minutes of the show is, and I've talked about this in other shows that I've been on the network. The only thing that concerns me about when people talk about how they're well read, back in the day, I never paid attention to necessarily what they were reading. But I think today, just as you have a preponderance of different media outlets where people get information, I'm a little bit concerned about, especially when it comes to like current events or history or the current world that we're in. I am a little bit worried about what people are reading in the standpoint of you could be reading a lot of wrong. Like there's people who are like, sometimes I'll hear people in these spaces and platforms and they talk about the books that they read, but I'm thinking a lot of the books that they read have a lot of hooey in them. I just like, yeah, just because a person wrote a book, none of these books are vetted. None of these books are fact checked per se. But people say, well, I read a whole bunch of books, and a lot of them concern like conspiracy theories and all kinds of wacky scenarios and stuff. But look, if you can back up what you're writing with actual cited sources. So again, if you're going to write a history book and you can go and cite places where we can look stuff up or whatever, then yeah, if you can do your research and show the research in what you're writing, then yeah, go ahead and do that. But for a lot of these books, especially a lot of these spiritual books, these sort of hyper spiritual Christian books, and they talk about different concepts of things, I'm like, where are you getting this from? Because it's not in the Bible. While you're writing some of this stuff, and I'm sometimes I'm shaking my head, and it's like, you're coming up with these things, and then a lot of times you try to make the Bible then fit what you believe. But you're not necessarily going directly from the script. So I'm saying that's just one example. I'm not trying to turn this into a religious discussion. But I'm just saying that a lot of people, just because you read a lot of books, doesn't necessarily mean, and I didn't grow up with this. Again, it's an image, it's a perception. Just because you are well read doesn't mean that you are necessarily have the right information. And I think in these days, it's becoming harder to distinguish between those who are actually telling the truth or have good information versus those who are just throwing stuff out there because it sells books. Really mean. And I didn't grow up with this. Again, me or you? You see, I'm hearing an echo. You are well read doesn't mean that you are necessarily.
That was me, my bad.
Okay.
I got a new setup here, so I'm still working this like kinks out.
Yes, I think. See, boss man, that's why you're here, because you put it more succinctly than I was able to. Well read doesn't mean well informed. What that, in fact, capture that, highlight that, trademark that, because we may use that again in the future. But yes, getting the information right, I think, comes more at a premium than just you read a ton of books, because again, some people, especially you have a bias or certain different points of view, then you can be in a certain world and you don't see, again, another perspective. That's one of the reasons why I love debate. I love watching debates. I love watching different points of view, intelligent people who can come to a debate stage and really hash out things or whatever. I love political debate. I love social debate. I like religious debate. But I like, where it's a balance of equals when they can go at it and you can kind of glean something from both of them. But a lot of times when it's just one-sided, or if only that you're reading is one-sided, then it's like, I don't know. But again, people will go on and say, yeah, I got a whole library full of books that talks about some existential stuff. And none of it could be true. But you're well read. So that's one thing I think that's changed for me. A gray area, okay, bringing it back to the theme of the show, a gray area for me is it's not as black and white anymore. That I used to be impressed by this backdrop here. It's like, wow, that person's very intelligent. That person's very well read and very thoughtful and mindful. And for a lot of people, it's like, no, they went to a design engineer or a design person and said, hey, you know what? You're going to design your office for podcasts or whatever. We're going to put a bunch of books, we're going to put some certain titles are put in specific places just to kind of make it seem like, okay, this person's got their pulse on whatever. And a lot of times they don't. So again, as much as I value reading, I think reading should start early in a child's life. Reading and writing should start early in a child's life. And I think you should have a lifetime of always desiring to get information. in the mediums that are available, whether it be in a print book format, a digital format, an audiobook format. You should always be seeking to get it right. But I think that certainly I'm not just going to just give you a blank check to say, okay, yeah, I have a whole library full of titles, but can you if you can't get the information right, then what did you spend all that time doing over the years?
I agree 100%, Paul, but I'm going to add a little bit to it, to what you're saying. If a child is struggling with reading or writing, get them the right help.
Work absolutely, 100%.
Practice with them. Make them practice. That was my biggest issue with my parents. They didn't make me practice. They yelled at me. They screamed at me. They grounded me.
When you say practice, what do you mean by that?
Go to a library or a bookstore. Buy a book that are going to fascinate them. Sit down and make them read that.
But I'm saying, if you had an issue, even with something that you liked, it was going to be an issue. So, I mean, certainly I think the important thing is, one, if there is a problem, then get the help that's needed, whether it be you need a speech therapist or something like that. Deal with that first, right?
But my parents never got me that help. So they yelled at me, but they never fixed the problem.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It might the kid might, or the student might just need a little more practice. Mm-hmm. So it could be might not even need therapy or tutoring. He just needs a little more time to practice reading.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. But if he doesn't have somebody, a tutor or adult with him to help him, that he doesn't know he's doing it wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I definitely agree that and again, this could have been an old school mentality. People thought you were dumb, that you weren't at grade levels. Like, oh, he's reading at Johnny, he's 7th grade, but he's reading at a 4th grade level. I think it's only really in recent years that people have been able to diagnose. Yeah, there is such a thing called dyslexia has always been around, but I think the issue is, I think a lot of people weren't willing to accept it. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of parents wouldn't accept the fact that their kid has a learning disability. It's like it's like an anathema to mention that, oh, I have a problem that I need to be dealt with. It's an embarrassment to your community and to your family. I think a lot of that stuff has mostly been done away with, and I think that people, hopefully are recognizing much earlier in a child's development when there's a reading problem. It could be an ear problem. It could be a physical problem some kind. Maybe there's a hearing issue or whatever it is. But getting to the problem, getting the right help, the speech therapist or the people, some people speak with an impediment, have a lisp of some kind, and again, getting getting kids especially the help that they need, so that they can, learn. In some ways, you have to teach them, again, especially with dyslexic folks, you got to teach them how to learn things differently. Their learning is going to be different. So getting them what they need in those spaces, rather than denying that, oh, my kid doesn't have a problem. But again, I would hope that with younger generations, with Boss Man's generation, I hope we're past a lot of that stuff, where people like, hey, just get the kid what they need, rather than calling, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, or hey, get better, you need to do better, or whatever, and the kid saying that I can't. So I hope we're getting away from that. And if that's certainly still going, if that's still an issue, then that's a sad state of affairs.
And I think we're still there. I don't think we have changed that one bit.
You don't think so? Wow.
No.
What do you? Guys in the chat, what do you think? Do you think that's changing? Do you think that? I think parents are being much more accepting of recognizing early on where their children have a problem with reading comprehension for whatever reason, physical, mental, whatever it is, and getting them the help. Or do you still think that we have a long way to go regarding helping kids get up to speed and working through their disabilities to get to a place where they can certainly be productive, in society and learn and stay up with their peers? I'd be curious just what people think about that. But I certainly think that we need to, if that attitude's out there, then that needs to be done away with.
I see it all the time. People calling people stupid or like that. Like when I was teaching, that is. I'm not teaching when I was around that, and it doesn't change. And Boss Man's right. It depends on the culture. That has a lot to do with it. Depends how you were raised. That has nothing to do with it. It depends on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and and having the resource, like a lot of these schools, especially public schools, some have it. What I have seen is that certainly in certain charter schools, I think public schools a lot of times are more apt to have speech coaches and speech pathologists and whatnot there in the schools versus some of the private ones, but or the charters. But again, that's just been my impression. But yes, identifying it, but also getting the help or the resources. Hopefully, if it comes to the public schools, great. If it doesn't, again, do you have the means with which to hire the right people to deal, with the situation, or are you equipped yourself? Because again, I think a lot of parents are not equipped. I know even me, when my kids were in school, they changed the math on me. So I really couldn't help my kids with math, for example, because they totally changed how you do math problems, how they taught me how to multiply by 2, carry the 1 and whatnot. They had a whole new math. So if I was going to help them in their math, I would have to learn the math that they had. So definitely, yeah. What's that?
That makes no sense. How do you change math? Math is always math.
It's, again, how do you solve problems? Yes, that new math. Yeah, it's basically there's different, what I would call it, an algorithm. There's different ways with which kids are taught today on how to solve math, like multiplication, division, problems, complex mathematical equations. There are different ways, like like you would use things like, what's that, MIT-PASS, multiplying, addition, subtraction. Like there was an order which you would take on. PEDMAS, I think it was called, that you would use to solve different mathematical equations and whatnot. Again, some of that stuff has changed over the years, and yeah, that new math is a little different than what we did. So again, I could have taught my kids how to solve the problem using my method, but the problem was they would PEDMAS. Thank you, PEMDAS. Yeah. So, but the problem was they could still fail the problem. Because again, part of the grading was, how did you come across solving the problem? So it wasn't just getting the answer right; it was the method that you used with which to solve the problem is what they were in part being graded on. So just getting it right wasn't enough. You had to go through the process which they were teaching you in order to in order to get to the solution. That was the issue. So I recognize that.
Doing here, I'm going on a limb a little bit. I think Eric's not a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, they flipped the script on that end. Certainly to us parents who are Gen Xers and later Gen millennials, to our chagrin. But that's the new reality that they're in. So a lot of that they had to learn on their own. But getting as we certainly come to the end of the show. Getting to, I guess last thoughts here, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad, we were able to have this conversation. I really appreciate the chat in terms of what you guys were able to contribute to it. And it seems like we go across the board in terms of, you got some old schools. I could tell you, she's got to have her book in her hand, and she's got to have the marker, and it's marked up, and that's how she does it. And she dedicates an hour a day to it. Again, kudos to you. Shout out to you for having that discipline, which I'm sure was instilled in you pretty early in your time and in your day. And, you just had that. Some of us still struggle with that. Some people are utilizing the digital formats more. And again, but a growing number of people are using the audio formats to get information, for entertainment, for education. And they're using that, to great advantage. And that trend will continue in the future. So again, I hope we don't get to a point where, they're burning the books. But I think that, how we get information is changing in this digital age. And I don't think we're going back from that. But the important thing for me is, again, how do we still equip people to operate across all mediums? Again, I think kids still need to learn how to read and write. And I think that's a skill that will serve them, I think, for the rest of their lives, regardless of what platforms may come their way. But I think, at the fundamental level, at least until you get to I would say by high school, I think you should certainly, have, those core skills in place. Now, where you go from there, because again, you go to high school now, here's your laptop, and all your work is going to be on there. Your books are going to be on there. Your assignments have to be done on there.
We're already there, Paul. We're already there.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm admitting.
The schools give out laptops. Next is going to be tablets.
Yeah.
So we're already there.
Yeah. So it's a new age, but again, any final thoughts on your end before we close out tonight?
Yeah, I need more toilet paper.
We apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Larissa's behavior tonight. We'll try to keep this above board.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about it for multiple times on this channel. You finally went to King Strelacki. What is your real thoughts?
I have to admit, so after Comic-Con, see, I'm trying to save some of this for the show, but after Comic-Con, so Peter has a ritual, right? If he's in New York, he has to go back to Astoria, Queens, and he has to go to this Greek food truck. Yeah, King Strelacki.
Queens, it could be Brooklyn, it could be
whatever. But he has to find a location where he has this truck. And I have to admit, I had the best gyro or hito, however you pronounce it. I had the best gyro I ever had. It came with French fries on it. It was delicious. And so absolutely shout out to Grooming for inviting me. And he picked up the tab for it as well. He wouldn't let me pay him. So I appreciate the hospitality, going through the old neighborhood where he grew up and, Greek community that he was in, and, had a great time. And again, so if you guys tune in this Saturday on the Hangout Show on the Sparta HQ Network, we're going to talk about, again, our experience at Comic-Con and the fun that we had there and the experiences that we were not expecting, but we had them anyway. And so you'll get a full summary of that experience, which was certainly truly a great experience, being there and certainly sharing the day with Peter. And so we look forward to sharing some of that with you guys. So again, tune in on that show next Saturday night, 9:30 on the Sparta HQ Network. We'll talk about our Comic-Con experience. But yes, it was the best gyro I ever had. And but I don't think I would drive. I still wouldn't necessarily drive but I'm with you. If I'm with you, definitely. You can, certainly, I don't mind making the trek with you. So again, very tasty indeed. But with that, again, we thank you guys for being with us for another edition of the Gray Area. Again, thank you so much, Boss Man, for everything that you do. Thank you for being our engineer tonight. Thank you for always being there to hook us up. And so again, I am Mr. Bennett. He is the Ghost of Sparta, part of the Sparta HQ Network. Make sure you go there and like and subscribe his page as well. Make sure you support the BMD Network. BMD Network gives you 7 days of content. Consider dropping a Cash App to the BMD Network, or certainly to us individually. We'd appreciate it. But just help us to grow this platform, and help if you certainly appreciate this content. Help us to continue to grow the channel so we continue to bring this kind of content with you as we try to have a reasoned, respectful debate and discussion on the gray area. It's never black and white, but there's always shades in between, and we love bringing it to you every Sunday night. So for everyone in the space, have a great week. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.
It's going down like a rodeo. It's going down like I told you so. It's going down like a rodeo. It's going down like I told you so. I hope you're all here for the ride. Come inside, cause it's going down tonight. Only here for one night, no lies, come and saddle up a ride. Need a yeehaw, you know how here for one night and we just wanna party. In a fast car, a Ferrari, it's a push start, I don't need a car key. It's out on Broadway, and it's gnarly, on a late night, but I'm not tardy. Right on time for the parties and Barbies, strolling with a chunk of green like a dog sweet. Hey, 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 bottles on ice, mess around these skates. Hey, 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 if I gotta say it twice, then I got nothing to say. It's going down like a rodeo. It's going down like I told you so. It's going down like a rodeo. It's going down inside, come inside, cause it's going down tonight. Only here for one night, no lies, come inside, left or right. Come and kiss me up, it's going down. Like a train with no brakes, I'm not slowing down. See it showing up, we're showing out. But I pack